Hello, everybody. Father Jones here with this recorded version of the State of the Parish address that I gave this previous weekend after all the Masses at the Cathedral of St Joseph Parish. Just want to jump right in so that we can make this video as concise as possible because there is a lot of information to talk about here. You see that artwork on that first slide there, that mosaic, and that's the one that is up in our narthex, our gathering space in the cathedral. It's the mosaic that you see when you leave the cathedral proper. You go out the front doors of the cathedral, and as you look up, you see that. Sometimes you miss it because we're too busy chatting with one another as we leave to look up. But it's an important piece of artwork to look at because it reminds us of something very, very true, and that is it depicts Christ in glory, Jesus Christ enthroned in glory. And it tells us that as we walk out of that cathedral building, that the one that we worshiped within its walls is also the Lord of everything outside of its walls, including the entirety of our lives. And so it's important to look at that piece of art as we leave the cathedral to remember and be reminded of who we are and to whom we belong and how we're called to live our lives in the entirety of it. So I have that piece of artwork up as the sort of introductory piece for this presentation. Really, the theme of the day is IYKYK, and I asked everyone who was at the event in person to raise their hand if they knew what that meant, and half of the people did, and half of them didn't. Of course, it means if you know, you know. If you know, you know. And so that's the theme of what I'm talking about. It's about imparting information, imparting knowledge, and imparting vision so that we, all of us, as the parishioners and leadership of our parish, can move forward. So what is our why? What are we here to talk about in this brief presentation? Well, we're here to learn more about the cathedral, celebrate the things we do well, and to identify the areas in which we can improve, but also especially to gain an understanding of what it takes to make our parish run. So the goal of today's presentation is first and foremost transparency and information sharing so that it can form us to be better parishioners. We'll do this information sharing from kind of a 30,000 foot view. We won't get too deep into the weeds, because then we'll be here forever, but we do want to make sure we give everybody the basics. And then, of course, there is, once again, that IYKYK. If you know, you know. And if we all know everything, then we're able together and individually to be better parishioners. So the overview of what I'm going to talk about in this video is pretty simple. I'm going to give a brief summary of the parish survey, give a couple of snapshots of the parish, a little bit of finances 101, and then talk about some strategies for continuing on a positive trajectory at the Cathedral of St Joseph. We're at a crossroads right now. That's just a reality. We're at a crossroads in our general culture here in the West. We're at a crossroads in the life of the church, in the life of our diocese, and certainly in the life of our cathedral parish. And at the root of all this is the need for us, each of us, to make a decision as individuals and as a parish in light of the state of the world, in light of the real shortage of priests that we are experiencing in our diocese and throughout all the dioceses, most of them at least, in the United States. In light of the future of our children, we have to ask ourselves the question, what kind of parish will we be moving forward? And in order to answer that question, we need to know the facts and we need to know the information. And so that's one of the reasons why we took a survey recently so that we could hear from you. So who took this survey? Well, we had 998 surveys sent out, 454 of which were returned for a 46% return rate, which is awesome. I guess industry standard, as I understand it, is about 13% to be considered a good return rate, and we got 46%, which is awesome. 90+% of the people who returned the survey identified as regular Mass goers, which is good news, and that they took the survey. Bad news, and that all those who are not regular Mass goers in our parish didn't get a chance to have their voices heard. And so we have to find a way to reach those folks so that we can hear what they have to say and so that we can make sure that we're trying to meet their needs. So you can see there a quote on this slide from Tommy Rose, who is our consultant, our liaison with Catholic Stewardship Consultants. And he just gave a little blurb about the survey. I'm not going to read through it for you right now. I'll let you read that as I'm talking. But basically what it says is, they took this survey so that we can learn more about our parish. We can learn about what our parish thinks and knows about stewardship. We can learn about how our parish works as a whole. We get feedback about our ministries, our activities, our needs, get some demographic information from folks, all that kind of stuff. Catholic Stewardship Consultants said that we, as far as survey rankings, we're in the top of the parishes they work with, that we're a thriving parish, that we're a lively parish, that we're a strong community. Folks here are very loyal to the parish, and there's a lot of good things going on. But there were some things which they identified, which are areas that we can work on. There's always a variety of opinions and perspectives and approaches to the common life of the parish, which I, as pastor, needed to hear, and which kind of reveal some of our needs. I will just share one example with you, and that was in the area of liturgy and music and worship. There was an opportunity in the survey to give feedback, not only by ticking a box, but also by writing comments. And I got something like 84 pages worth of written comments that I'm actually still sifting through. But it was kind of interesting reading through the ones about music and liturgy, because it showed the great diversity and expanse of perspectives of our parish, because about 5 pages worth literally rotated between two alternating viewpoints. It would, one comment would say, we would like to see more guitar music and contemporary songs. The very next comment would be, we would like to have more traditional hymns and Latin. The next comment would be, I hate Latin, please only do English. And the next comment would be, we need more Latin, it's the language of the church and it's very sacred. And then the next comment would be, please have more contemporary hymns. And the next comment would be, please, more organ music and traditional hymns. And it went on and on and on and on, back and forth. And I had to smile, because I realized this is the church, And so what is a pastor to do in that situation, faced with variety of competing opinions? Well, we navigate it the best we can. We are a cathedral parish, and so we're going to have all of it. We're going to have contemporary, more modern music. At times, we're going to have a lot of very traditional music. We're going to be mostly in English, but we're also going to, as the Second Vatican Council calls us we're also going to honor our heritage and the Latin language of the Universal Church. So I just use that as one example. There were many others, though, and I will be sharing some of those in my email newsletter that I send out to the parish, my communication in weeks and months to come. So be on the lookout for that sort of stuff. All right, now let's move over to what's going on in our parish. Here's just kind of some snapshots of what is happening in our parish. Liturgically and sacramentally, here are our numbers: 396 weekday masses, 208 weekend masses. Average attendance for weekend masses that we have compiled from August of this past year, just a few months ago, month before last rather, 1441, compared against 2023, 1013, so that's a good improvement. We've had an increasing number of households join our parish over the last several years, and you can see the numbers there. We had 72 baptisms, 49 confirmations, 31 funerals, 12 weddings, and 118 opportunities for the sacrament of reconciliation. So a very, very busy parish, sacramentally, liturgically, lots of things going on. But what about all the other stuff? What else happens at the Cathedral of St Joseph? How many things? That is, meetings or gatherings or events or practices or performances or games, that sort of stuff, ranging from a small group of 3 people that meet on a Saturday morning in the parish office to Cana Hall being filled with all of the teachers of our diocese for a professional development day, and everything in between. How many events took place at our cathedral this last year? And that number is 2,286. And I think that's probably a pretty conservative estimate as we went through our calendars and looked back to see what happened there. But, That excludes the weekend masses and the weekday masses. So all those things on that previous slide, all those numbers are not included in that number. Add those onto that, and you'll see that we have a very busy campus, a very, very busy parish, lots going on. Oh yeah, and I also forgot to add, we also had 172 days of school, which is not counted in those previous numbers. So there's lots of stuff going on at the Cathedral of St. Joseph. Now, so when you hear about us hiring an events coordinator to help us oversee, organize, and implement events, especially some of the bigger ones in our parish, now you'll know why. Because it's too much for the current office staff to undertake and do their own jobs. So busy place here at the cathedral. Let's look at our facilities. We have a big campus here at the cathedral. I think it probably is, if not the largest campus in our diocese, second only to Our Lady of Lourdes in Columbia. But I actually think ours is probably bigger. 177,000 square feet under roof. Between the parish office, the school and gym, the cathedral, and the rectory. So that is a lot of square feet to maintain, to repair, to clean, to set up, to plan for, to do ongoing maintenance on, all of that sort of thing. The cathedral, Cana Hall, and the school and the gym, those places are in constant use. As are our meeting areas over at the Sacred Heart Center, at the rectory, and in our parish offices. So it's a huge physical plan. So when I talk about hiring a facilities coordinator to work with our office staff and our maintenance team to plan how we use our facilities, how we upkeep our facilities, and to make sure everything gets done, now you'll know why. It's an important part of keeping us safe, hospitable, and our facilities in tip-top shape. I'd like now to shift over to the largest ministry of our parish, which I know everyone can guess is the school. It is a ministry of the parish, and it's an important one. It's the one that gets the most time, the most effort, and the most resources. So let's talk about some of the numbers at the school. We have a faculty and staff of 62, 455 students enrolled in the school pre-K through 8th grade. We had 24 new students enroll in kindergarten through 8th grade this year. Total number of families, including our preschool, is 292. We have 22 tuition-paying families. All of preschool is tuition, but K through 8, we do not charge tuition, of course, unless you're a non-Catholic family, and we have 22 tuition-paying K through 8 families, which means we have 345 students who are sponsored for enrollment by the parish. And that phrase is one I want to spend just a few minutes talking about. Why am I using it? It is very intentionally used by me because I want us to stop using terms like parish families and school families. Because the reality is the parish and the school are not separate entities. We are one. The school is simply a ministry of the parish. It's the largest ministry of the parish. And so when we talk about kids of parishioners going to the cathedral school tuition free, that nothing is free, right? They're sponsored. They're sponsored for enrollment by the parish. And to be clear, that means they're paid for. The parish pays for those students because the parish believes that Catholic education is so important. The parish, that means all of us, everyone who financially supports the cathedral, pays for these kiddos to go to our parish school. And I'll talk more about what that cost is here in just a few minutes. But it's a very important ministry to us and one that we want to be strong, but one that has a lot of implications for the common life of our parish and how we all live together and support this largest of our ministries. So let's move on to Parish Finances 101. I'm going to try not to give too much commentary on all this. I'm just going to explain the numbers, what they mean and what they're for, and let you look at them and not give too much commentary, okay? But do know this, when it comes to budgeting, I'll be talking about numbers from the last fiscal year. But when it comes to giving, those numbers will be based on a calendar year because that's how giving numbers work. But I will say this, all the numbers I'm going to share with you are primarily, as I said at the beginning of this presentation, IYK. If you know, you know. I'm sharing this with you out of a sense of transparency, not necessarily as a means to say, hey, we need more funds. But I do think that knowledge is power, and knowledge and understanding then does affect our decisions. And I think with this knowledge and information in front of us, it will be evident to everyone that we do have some opportunities ahead of us. So let's look at our numbers for last year. There you go. Total budgeted income was $4.6 million. Total pledged income, $3.6 million. So we had almost $1 million gap, $963,000 gap. And that was made up through other forms of giving, special gifts that we get, bequests that we get, unexpected donations, et cetera, et cetera. You can see from that pie chart that those pledged dollars are applied 25% to the running of the parish, the non-school running of the parish. We're not separate entities. But school, the ministry of the school, took up the 75% of those pledged income funds. That means 75 cents of every dollar given to the Cathedral of St Joseph goes to support our ministry of the school, which we have committed to and we love. But it's a big one, which means the cost for educating each student in our school to the parish, by the way, that sponsorship we talked about in the last slide, is $7,124 for each student every year. Okay, so just want you all to be aware of our pledged income, our budgeted income, how much it costs to educate each student, how much of our income goes to support the ministry of the school, and that gap that we have between budgeted needs and what we have pledged to come in to support those needs. Now, the parish does have resources, and we're very grateful and blessed to have resources. So I do want to talk through those for you because they can be kind of deceiving. We have a total amount of parish assets of just over $5 million. About $2.1 million of that is held by the parish and held at the diocese. So these are liquid funds, $1 million of which we hold directly in the parish. A little bit over $1 million we hold with the diocese. Now, some would ask, why in the world would you hold funds with the diocese? It's actually a pretty good strategy for us because we get a fixed rate of return, which is at or above market rates. And holding funds with the diocese is kind of like a savings and loan. It allows other parishes to be lended money by the diocese for projects that they complete, which then comes back to us as interest on those projects, and we're able to make a little bit of money. Plus, it's just very, very, very liquid. All I have to do is write a letter, call the CFO of the diocese, say we want to withdraw X amount of funds, and we have a check the next day. Those are our funds. We just invest them with the diocese. So we have about $2.1 million of liquid assets. The rest are very restricted. The Cathedral Preservation Fund, just over $1 million, and that is meant to offset the cost of any major repairs to our newly renovated cathedral, to set us up well for the future. But it's not for like ongoing expenses. It's not for that kind of stuff. It has to be for major, things. And so it's restricted and administered by a board of which I, as the pastor, am the chair. And then we have the St. Joseph Endowment, which is an endowed fund, almost $2 million in it, which is amazing. It's governed by a set of bylaws and a board as well, of which I am on the board, and I'm the chair of the board as pastor. And the endowment makes a distribution every year to the parish, which is most often used for the ministry of the school. It supports the ministry of the school. So those two funds, that $3 million-ish is highly restricted and just can't be used for anything. So if all of our income dried up, though, today, how long could the parish continue to operate on reserves? And that's where we get into some tricky stuff, because it looks like we've got a lot of money in the bank, but we really don't. We would be able to operate for 6 months, and then we would have spent down all of our liquid reserves. So that's important knowledge, I think, for you all to know. So now I want to just briefly talk about that parishioner financial support of the parish. Our total parishioner giving in 2023 was $3.463 million, of which our top 10% of givers, which represents 7 families in our parish, gave $2.25 million. of that 3.463 million, which is a significant amount. I joked this past weekend when I gave this presentation that I don't want those 7 families to be sitting together on the same bus or flying together on the same airplane, because if the plane were to go down or the bus were to crash, we would be in a world of hurt, right? Joking, but not joking. 1.237 million is the amount that the remaining 90% of our parishioners give as a whole, which means the average financial contribution of the 90% of our parishioners is $1,255 a year, which comes out to $104 a month. That number, as I said, not too much commentary. I'll let you come to a conclusion on your own as to how well that number is supporting our parish. Good news is, though, 85% of the parish families did support the parish last year, while 15% did not support it financially. Here's a breakdown of those numbers. We have a total number of 993 families in our parish, 7 of them 20K and up, 20, 10, between 10 and 20K, 85 gave between 5 and 10,000, 133 gave between 3,000 and 5,000, 324 gave between 1,000 and 3,000, 500 and 1,000, 104, and 124 gave less than 500, and 196 gave 0. Which makes our overall giving 3,487. But if you take out that top 10%, who make up the lion's share of our giving, we get that $1,255 number. Now, if we take out of these numbers here a breakdown of those families who have students sponsored for enrollment in the Catholic school, we see that their average actually is a little bit higher than it is in the average parish. The average, without the top 10 givers from families enrolled in the school, is $2,000, just over $2,000. But remember, it does cost $7,124 to educate each student in our school each year. And that number is only going up because of the cost it takes to do business. But there's the breakdown of who gave what, the number of families who gave what to support the parish, which then goes to support the ministry of the school from families who have students sponsored for enrollment in the school. And you can see the most distressing one, though, is the number of families who gave 0, and that is 39. And that has to change along the lines of what we expect when it comes to stewardship. So all of this really is an opportunity to reflect for all of us, to reflect and to see kind of where we are, to look at these numbers, to look at these breakdowns, and to see where we fit, and to see if that reflects our ability to support. Because all the church asks is that we support our parish financially according to our abilities. And so take a moment, total parishioners, go back to that previous slide, rewind this video if you want to, and look at those numbers and see if the area you find yourself in reflects your true ability. And if it does, great. Thank you. If it doesn't, then pray, how you might respond to that reality. But this is just our opportunity to kind of think about that and reflect on that. But as Forrest Gump said in one of the best movies of all time, that's all I have to say about that. So let's just move on. So we do have opportunities in front of us. And some of those opportunities have to do with knowledge. Knowledge is power. I've said that several times in this presentation. And it's true. Knowledge is power when it comes to the stewardship of treasure. We have to understand what the parish needs to support itself. Now remember, though, when we support the parish with our treasure, our financial gift, we are not supporting an institution. We're supporting a mission. And I've said many times, I've reminded people what Pope Benedict XVI said about why the Catholic Church exists. The Catholic Church exists for 3 reasons. Number 1, to worship Almighty God. Number 2, to evangelize the nations. And number 3, to serve the poor. And so everything that we're doing at the cathedral falls in some way, shape, or form under each one of those 3 things. Worshiping God, evangelizing the nations, serving the poor. That's our mission. Our school is part of that mission. Our other ministries are part of that mission. That's why we exist. And so we all have to realize our gifts, whether they be our time, our talent, or our treasure, need to be driven by the mission of the parish. And so we're always looking for opportunities to maximize our resources and gifts to make the most of them. Now, A good opportunity that we're facing in our current culture has to do with the fact that we're coming to the point where we're preparing for the largest transfer of wealth that our nation has ever seen as one generation ages and new ones grow up. And so end-of-life gifts, this is kind of macabre to talk about, I know, but it's so important for us to be honest and talk about them, because end-of-life gifts are so important for helping keep our parish healthy, for building up our reserves, and by, supporting ministries that we know are so important in the life of our parish. And just remember, any end-of-life gift is tithe-free. None of it is given to the diocese. None of it goes to the bishop. None of it goes outside of the parish. The entirety of it stays in the parish for whatever reason it was designated, and to support the ministry of our parish church. So keep that in mind. Now, we also have other reasons and areas for improvement. And this is just a general sort of statistical analysis of what your average parish in the United States looks like. And I received these numbers from a presentation I went to at a conference a couple of years ago. In your average parish, 7% of your people are actively engaged. Okay? 11% of your people are actively disengaged. But everybody else is somewhere else on that spectrum in between. Whether they are closer to the actively engaged end or they're closer to the actively disengaged end. Everybody else is in the 82%. And so the goal of the parish, part of the mission of the parish, is to move the percentage of in-between parishioners toward that actively engaged side so that our parish can be strengthened, so that her ministries can be strengthened, so that people who are part of the parish can grow in their knowledge and love of God and of their neighbor. A strong parish has that 82% more geared towards the actively engaged than the actively disengaged. Doesn't mean we don't reach out to the actively disengaged. We do. But hopefully, we also strengthen ourselves by helping that 82% become more connected with our parish. So where do we go from here? What's our plan moving forward? I've got 3 exhortations to give as I wind down today. 3 exhortations. And so I'm just going to dive right into them so that we can finish this presentation up. My first exhortation is to all of our parishioners. Okay. Remember the importance of understanding and supporting the mission of the parish, which is to worship Almighty God, to evangelize the nations, and to serve the poor in whatever state we find them. The poor in spirit, the poor materially, the poor in health. Poor come in all kinds of categories. But doing those 3 things is what we are called to do. So thank you to everybody who has supported the mission of the parish throughout the years, but also a reminder, when we talk about the word stewardship, that S word, which really is about discipleship, which is about growing in love with God and neighbor. Stewardship is the best way to do this. It's the best way to support the mission of the parish. And I am unapologetic about this. And stewardship is most effectively lived through those 3 things you see at the bottom of the slide. Through praying, that is coming to Mass on the weekends and holy days of obligation by participating, doing some sort of sharing of time and talent with the parish, and then by sacrificially giving, financially supporting the parish according to one's ability. But understanding, of course, that the biblical mandate is the tithe, okay? And that's what we should all be at least striving for, even if we're not close to that yet. So that's my exhortation to all parishioners. My second exhortation is to parishioners who do not have kids enrolled in our parish school. So I ask them to remember that it is their stewardship of talent and especially treasure, which allows our school, that largest ministry of our parish, to run, thrive, and grow. Also remember that if you at one point in your life had a kid or kids who were educated and formed by our cathedral school, remember that at that time it was the stewardship of other people, particularly the stewardship of the treasure which they gave to the parish, which took the majority of cost burden for educating your kids at that time. So please be generous now in return so that you can help the next generation get their kids formed and educated by our school. Then I just need you to encourage encourage, and invite. You see young families around the parish, you may not know them, introduce yourself to them, invite them to be part of the larger parish. Encourage, invite. Be welcoming, hospitable, all of that kind of stuff. Especially by realizing that parish families who have kids sponsored for enrollment in our school, they are not just the future, they're also the now. So please help welcome them into active involvement and leadership in the parish. So that is exhortation number 2. Exhortation number 3 is to parishioners who have kids sponsored for enrollment by the parish in the school. Okay, I want you all, please, to take to heart what I just said to the other parishioners who don't have kids in the school. And remember that it is their stewardship which is making our school and the education and formation that your kids receive here a reality. Also, remember that you have been informed on several occasions. I was part of one last year and now this year. And I know you've heard it the year before, and I know documents have been signed and all that kind of stuff. That you know that it's your duty to live as an active steward in alignment with the baptismal promises you made at your kids' baptism in order to have your kids sponsored by the generosity of the parish. So please, please, please do not squander it, okay? Remember also, thank you to those who are striving to live as active stewards. I see you. I know there are many of you. I know that it's not easy, and it comes with a great amount of sacrifice. You know that I know how big of a sacrifice it can be. So thank you. But I also know that there are many of you who are not striving to live as active stewards. You're not attending Mass on the weekends regularly. You're not financially supporting the parish to your ability. You're not involved in any of the ministries or activities of the parish. And I just need you I'm inviting you to commit and do better. Take that call to discipleship and stewardship seriously. And I don't say that with rancor or judgment, but simply out of pastoral concern. I'm a pretty competitive guy, and I have no intention of babysitting a withering parish. So we need to be moving the ball down the field. We need to be moving the ball forward, and we need to do that together. One of my biggest joys of being pastor is interacting with families of kids who are sponsored for enrollment at our school at like big events, whether that be muffins with mom, donuts with dad, first communions, confirmations, school open house, all that stuff. They are amazing events, and it's so great to see everybody there. But they're also sad events, because I'm not going to lie. I look at those, I'm at those events, and I see folks that I never see in church on a weekend. And that's we got to do better than that. It's not okay. It needs to change. And so we need to not only set the example as leaders of our parish, but as leaders of our families as well. So please do look into your hearts and understand what you're being asked to do by the Lord and His church. And that is to raise your kids to live into the grace of their baptism, to raise them in the faith. And that happens not in isolation, but in the community of faith in the parish. And so make family weekend Mass a priority, okay? This next slide builds on that, and I stole it from another priest. And it's just the basic of why do I want you to go to Mass, okay? And like I said, I stole this from another priest who's doing these kinds of meetings in his parish and our diocese as well. So I want you to go to Mass, first of all, because you love God, and you want to make a return on the things He has given you. That's why I want you to go to Mass. But failing that, okay, I want you to go to Mass out of care for your soul. Now, failing that, I want you to go to Mass out of care for your children's souls. And then failing that, I want you to go to Mass so you can keep sending your amazing kids to our school. Because stewardship is very, very clear, and the obligations of stewardship are extremely clear. In order to have your kids sponsored for enrollment in our Catholic school, you got to come to Mass. You got to come to weekend Mass. That last one, though, is a low bar, but I'll take it. Why? Because it kind of becomes like a gateway. If you come to Mass because you don't want your kids not to be enrolled in our school, maybe you begin to get something out of Mass. Maybe you begin to grow spiritually. Maybe you hear a decent homily now and then. Maybe you're inspired at some point by a musical selection. Maybe you find that the Eucharist nourishes you in a way that you hadn't been nourished before, and then pretty soon you're not coming to Mass out of an obligation because you want to keep sending your kid to our school. You're coming to Mass because you have a newfound care for your soul and your kid's soul. And then you find yourself coming to Mass solely because you love God and you want to make a return on the things he has given you. But coming to Mass is not an option. Catholic faith that we live is not an 8 to 3 Monday through Friday thing for 9 months. May not be a 24/7, 365 thing for most folks yet, but we all have to start on the path somewhere. So please make weekend Mass a priority with your kids, because the teaching of the church says for all Catholics, and the minimal bar is that all Catholics on Sunday and holy days of obligation are bound to participate, bound in the Mass. So please do so. All right, wrapping things up. Lots of things going on at the Cathedral of St Joseph. In order to keep up with our mission, we need everybody to continue to grow in their faith and in their participation in life. The parish, we cannot continue. You saw those numbers on that one slide. We cannot continue to thrive long-term by relying on the financial contributions of the few. Everyone needs to give according to their ability, and we're grateful for those who have the ability to give a lot more, but all of us need to look into our hearts and see how we're supporting the parish. Also, finally, remember, a strong parish not only has a positive effect within itself, but on the bigger community and the church as a whole, and which is why we want to be a strong, thriving parish. For those who are active, keep up the good work. Thank you, thank you, thank you. For those who aren't, now's your time. Please pray about stepping up in the faith and trusting in the Lord, because we need you. We want you. We love you, and we want you to be really active and be part of our community. So, here's the end. That is a QR code for those who may not know it. You can take your phone out. You can pull the camera up on your phone and put that code in the camera site, and it should allow you then to go to a website which will allow you to ask any question you might have about this Mass. And so, if you want to ask a question, if there was something in here you want more clarification on, you want to make a comment, this is your venue to do it. So scan that QR code and you can ask the question. So we'll also be sending out a link with this presentation where you can just click on a link in the email and it will take you to the same place so you can ask questions there. So thanks for paying attention. Thanks for listening. I hope everybody has a great day.